Using a royal title doesn't grant immunity. It only brings accountability. If Meghan Markle continues to leverage royal identity for commercial gain, she alone will bear the legal and moral consequences. Meanwhile, the Princess of Wales moved gracefully through the glittering corridors of Dior's Paris headquarters, where the scent of luxury clings to the air like history itself. In early December 2025, a sealed package was dispatched. Quiet, elegant, unmistakable. Its symbolism was immediate. The Princess of Wales, Catherine. What began as a heartfelt tribute to grace and tradition would, within days, ignite one of the most quietly explosive dramas in modern royal branding. Suddenly, Meghan Markle was turned away at the very same doors, forcing a global fashion empire to make a choice between two women, two visions, and two radically different definitions of royalty. It wasn't a campaign, it wasn't a contract, it was a gesture. On December 3rd, 2025, a meticulously curated Dior gift box arrived at Kensington Palace. Under the direct guidance of Maria Grazia Chiuri, Dior's creative director, it contained a one-of-a-kind clutch from Dior's upcoming couture line, delicately embroidered with HRH, the Princess of Wales's initials, alongside a handwritten note celebrating a woman who embodies quiet legacy, refined power, and the elegance of modern heritage. The note was signed personally by Chiuri, who reportedly described Catherine to colleagues as a timeless icon in an era dominated by fleeting idols. Dior insiders had long admired the princess's wardrobe, understated yet regal, modern but steeped in the subtle codes of royalty. But this gesture went far beyond admiration. It carried intent, meaning, and cultural weight. According to sources inside the house, the gift was part of a private cultural initiative, a tribute project honoring Princess Diana's enduring influence on elegance and compassion. The vision was clear: blend past and future through Catherine. No press releases, no headlines, just silent, unspoken class and couture in motion. Catherine's response matched the elegance of the gift itself. Through a Kensington Palace spokesperson, she sent a personal note of thanks praising Dior's artistry and affirming her deep appreciation for the cultural and humanitarian legacy embedded in the House of Dior's work. She politely declined any commercial partnership, adhering strictly to her non-commercial royal role, but in private, she expressed delight in being recognized not just as a public figure, but as a symbol of meaningful continuity, a role she believes is earned, not inherited. Earned. It's not about wearing the crown, it's about wearing it with grace. One aide reportedly said Catherine summarized it best: it's about wearing it well. Yet not everyone saw Dior's tribute as open-ended. Just 48 hours after the gift arrived at Kensington Palace, Meghan Markle landed in Paris for what her team described as a private, fashion-focused visit. Behind the scenes, Dior executives had already been briefed. An internal memo, dated November 20th, 2025, warned of a potential unscheduled VIP appearance from the Duchess of Sussex, noting no official appointment existed and that all communications must follow strict legal protocol. On November 25th, Meghan arrived in a chauffeured car, reportedly accompanied by a small camera crew and a private stylist. She requested a couture fitting, allegedly claiming a pre-scheduled meeting, but her name wasn't on the books. Her invitation didn't exist. Her entry was politely, yet firmly, declined. No scandal, no scene. Just Dior's head of protocol stepping forward. "We apologize, madam. We have no appointment under that name." What followed wasn't confusion. It was carefully calculated chaos. Sources from Dior and its PR agency revealed that for months, Meghan's team had submitted proposals positioning her as the perfect face for a new Dior campaign, inspired by Princess Diana's global influence, but reimagined through Meghan as a bold, modern disruptor. One leaked document even suggested the slogan, "Legacy," rewritten, reimagined, reclaimed. Dior insiders reportedly rejected the idea outright, citing reputational risk, misalignment with the house's long-term cultural strategy, and potential conflict in public perception. In a boardroom remark now circulating in fashion circles, a senior executive allegedly said, "We dress legends. We don't manufacture them through controversy." Hours after Meghan was turned away, blogs and PR-aligned accounts began posting curious updates. Posts on X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram appeared under hashtags like More Meghan in Dior, Non Duchess of Style, and Legacy in Motion, suggesting early-stage discussions between Meghan and Dior, hinting at a collaboration. But these posts were far from organic. Investigative reporting from Le Monde's fashion desk traced many of the posts to digital agencies linked to Meghan and Harry's foundation, automated across influencer accounts in North America and the UK. The message was crystal clear: someone was trying to manufacture an association that had already been rejected. On November 26th, the House of Dior finally broke its silence with a brief but razor-sharp statement to select European editors. No current or planned partnership exists with the Duchess of Sussex. No elaboration, no emotion. In the language of couture, that was a final curtain. What began as a tribute quietly morphed into a brand battle. One Catherine never started, but one she now, by contrast, visibly won. Fashion editors from Vogue Paris to the Times style section praised Catherine's restraint and clarity. She understands the royal code and never oversteps. Meghan, in contrast, continues to operate like royalty on a freelance contract within the House of Windsor. The contrast was glaring. Then, on November 28th, Clarence House issued a rare official memo. Only active working members of the royal family, appointed by His Majesty the King, are authorised to act in representation, commercial or ceremonial, of royal identity, name or association. The Duchess of Sussex holds no such appointment. A private legal review spearheaded by the Lord Chamberlain's office flagged Meghan's attempt to leverage the Sussex title commercially as a misrepresentation of her role and function. Catherine's response was unexpectedly direct. It wasn't just a rebuke, it was a masterclass in control. 3 days after Dior issued its official statement denying any collaboration with Meghan Markle, royal watchers and legal analysts were stunned by what followed. A rare but surgical intervention came from the Princess of Wales herself. Not emotional, not confrontational, but razor-sharp in its implications. At a private panel on women's leadership at Somerset House on November 29, 2025, a journalist asked an off-script question. Does the princess feel misrepresented in recent comparisons with the Duchess of Sussex? Catherine paused, then delivered a calm but deliberate response. When one holds a position tied to public duty, it is not the name that carries the role. It is the role that defines the responsibility. Titles are not licenses. They are obligations. The room froze. The message was unmistakable. This was not just a subtle reminder of protocol. It was a legal assertion of representational authority, striking precisely where Meghan's Dior maneuver had blurred the line between celebrity and sovereignty. Many outside royal circles often overlook that Catherine holds an advanced degree in art history and has extensive training in law and governance at the University of St Andrews. In this moment, she wielded that expertise with clarity, authority, and conviction. Palace insiders confirmed Catherine had quietly consulted royal counsel after Meghan's misleading social media associations with Dior. While no legal action was deemed necessary, the situation was classified internally as a case of passive commercial impersonation, proving that using a royal title comes with consequences and accountability. According to an aide present at the meeting, Catherine's concern wasn't about brand confusion, it was about the misrepresentation of royal service. She reportedly said, "If the line between personal ambition and national representation is erased, we risk turning the monarchy into marketing. That is not tradition. It's a transaction." While Meghan remained in Paris following her failed Dior approach, the fashion world started reacting in waves. A leaked LVMH internal note, dated December 7th, placed Meghan Markle on a PR-sensitive watch list circulated among top brand executives. This list, typically used during global events like Fashion Week, signals that the figure requires extra scrutiny before any engagement or approval. Endorsement or sample requests that once flowed smoothly for Meghan, long hailed as an iconic brand partner, were quietly being blocked. During her tenure as a working royal, a pending request from her team for Paris Fashion Week attendance was discreetly withdrawn. Chanel went further, denying access to its Winter Atelier tour. usually reserved for high-profile ambassadors and philanthropic guests. One stylist at a major Paris agency confided anonymously, "It's not that people dislike her. It's that no one wants the drama. Catherine brings timelessness, Meghan brings headlines, and in couture, time always wins." The Royal Communications Office, usually careful with its words, released a second statement on December 1st, reinforcing the official stance. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex are no longer working members of the royal family and are not authorised to represent or negotiate on behalf of the Crown, its institutions, or its legacy. The choice of words was deliberate, especially the term legacy, which had featured heavily in Meghan's Dior proposal materials. Royal sources confirmed that the king personally signed off on the wording, aiming to reaffirm constitutional clarity around non-working royals and protect the institution from informal monetization across social media and European op-eds. The mood shift was palpable. The Daily Telegraph praised Catherine's refined assertion of principle over pageantry, while Le Figaro ran a striking editorial titled L'idée de l'héritière, describing Catherine as a royal whose silence speaks volumes and whose restraint redefines relevance. In contrast, Meghan's attempt to position herself as the modern face of a Diana-inspired movement drew criticism for being tone-deaf and opportunistic. A viral tweet summed up public sentiment bluntly: "Catherine embodies Diana's spirit. Meghan tried to wear her silhouette." There was no official seating. No designer greeted her at the door. No dressing credit appeared in the show notes. Meghan still appeared at the Balenciaga runway show on December 1st, 2025, flanked by a low-profile security detail and a discreet digital team recording every move. In another context, it might have been a glamorous Paris return. Here, it was a performance met with frozen stares. Her outfit, a tailored, floor-length coat in deep ivory with structured shoulders and minimal jewellery, was photographed perfectly, designed to impress. But behind the cameras, whispers were louder than the flashes. One fashion editor, seated 3 rows back, summarised the scene bluntly. "She walked in like a headliner, but no one turned their heads." Multiple insiders confirmed Balenciaga had not invited Meghan officially. Her team secured access through private intermediaries and third-party PR networks, not through the house itself. The brand did not dress her, did not seat her as a guest, had no association with her presence. Her look was assembled by a London-based stylist who had worked on mid-tier PR campaigns. Even the only confirmed designer item, black Balenciaga pumps, came from a past-season purchase. In high-fashion circles, this distinction mattered. Wearing is not the same as being dressed. A former LVMH consultant explained, "You can buy the look, but you can't buy the legitimacy." The message was clear. Meghan had shown up at a club that no longer handed her keys. Attendees later described a noticeable chill as she sat camera-ready, but surrounded by empty spaces. Editors who once fawned over her presence at Givenchy events kept to themselves. No designer approached. No stylists exchanged notes. A British beauty director observed anonymously, "It wasn't hostility, it was absence. In fashion, that's worse than being disliked." The intended reassertion of status among fashion elites quickly turned into an awkward mirror showing how far Meghan had fallen. Balenciaga, recovering from its own controversies in 2024, had no interest in being dragged into another publicity spiral. Hours after the show, Meghan's team filmed B-roll content on a late-night drive through central Paris, including a brief passage through the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, the very site where Princess Diana died in 1997. To some, it was coincidence. To others, a calculated image play. French media reacted swiftly. Le Parisien ran the headline, "Héritage profané," legacy profaned. Talk show commentators questioned the optics of a woman who had publicly compared herself to Diana, filming content near hallowed ground. A Parisian stylist who had worked with Dior in the 2000s put it bluntly, "It felt like she was trying to steal something intangible. Parisians can sense when something sacred is being exploited." Backlashes spread quickly, not in fury, but in withdrawal. The next morning, 2 brands cancelled influencer collaborations that included Meghan-adjacent content. A niche fashion podcast dropped a planned episode on her style journey, citing shifts in brand alignment. Meanwhile, in the UK, Catherine said nothing publicly, but the contrast was undeniable. On December 2nd, Kensington Palace quietly released photos of her visit to a children's mental health art exhibit. She wore a classic cream coat dress by British designer Amelia Wickstead, a subtle nod to heritage tailoring. She didn't mention Dior. She didn't mention Meghan. Yet fashion blogs across Europe went wild, posting headlines like, "While Meghan stages, Catherine leads." One viral post captured two side-by-side images, Meghan at Balenciaga, Catherine at a children's hospice. Caption: "One builds an image, one builds a legacy." Even Dior's internal brand mood tracking, according to leaked marketing documents, showed a 30% increase in net positive sentiment across markets like the UK, France, and South Korea. After the Catherine tribute became public, there was no contract, no post, just quiet alignment. By mid-December, it was clear that Catherine's influence extended well beyond any title or fashion campaign. While Meghan sought visibility, Catherine had become an avatar of institutional memory and modern grace, precisely by not commercializing her role. As one senior fashion director wrote in a quoted editorial for Business of Fashion, brands are no longer chasing attention, they're seeking alignment with values that endure. Catherine provides that in every thread she wears. And perhaps that is the real lesson. Dior understood it before anyone else. Elegance needs no endorsement. It was the silence that shattered the illusion. Social media erupted with criticism over Meghan's Dior debacle and her controversial appearance at the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. Behind the scenes, the British royal family was already mobilizing a formal boundary-setting maneuver, not to humiliate, but to protect the monarchy's institutional identity. In an increasingly commercial world where brand and legacy blur, on December 3rd, 2025, a closed-door session at Clarence House convened senior royals, King Charles III, Princess Anne, and the Prince of Wales. Insiders described the topic as a matter of representational sovereignty, protocol, dignity, and precedent, not politics, not gossip. At the centre of the discussion, Meghan's unauthorised brand interactions and her repeated use of the Sussex title in implied commercial contexts. According to briefed aides, the conversation focused on the legal and moral distinction between holding a royal title and marketing it. "There are few lines left in the public perception of royalty," one insider said. "And if we don't defend those few, we surrender everything." The concern wasn't just Dior, it was the pattern. Unauthorized visual associations, PR crafted narratives suggesting official status, and persistent attempts to position Meghan as an alternate royal standard. Princess Anne reportedly voiced the clearest stance. Either titles represent duty and boundaries, or they become currency. Allow the latter, and we reduce ourselves to content. Her comment drew quiet, unanimous agreement. King Charles then authorized a formal clarification of royal title usage, reviewed by legal counsel and approved for public release on December 4th, 2025. The royal household issued a direct but carefully worded notice via the court circular. Titles conferred by the sovereign are held in trust, with the expectation of service and integrity. Any use of royal styles or titles in commercial, promotional, or representational contexts must receive prior approval from the royal household. No such authorization had been granted to the Duke or Duchess of Sussex. Though names weren't explicitly mentioned, the implication was unmistakable. British tabloids were quick to interpret. The Telegraph ran the headline, "Crown closes door on Meghan's brand games." Meanwhile, the Times framed it institutionally. Monarchy defines its boundaries, a doctrine for the modern era. What surprised many wasn't the King's statement, but Catherine's quiet reinforcement of it, grounded in her legal knowledge. On December 5th, during a panel at the Royal Foundation's Ethics and Leadership Forum, Catherine made a clearly intentional comment. In every institution, clarity protects legacy. The misrepresentation of role, particularly for profit, doesn't just erode trust, it cheapens history. Having studied legal frameworks for institutions and representation during her academic years, Catherine's words were far from casual. According to a former Royal Foundation advisor, her statement was essentially an academic argument dressed as a moral stance. Its power lay not in volume, but in precision. Behind the scenes, senior advisors to William and Catherine began drafting an internal protocol, informally called the Windsor Representation Principles. Key points included no use of royal titles for commercial gain unless expressly approved, no visual associations implying endorsement, and no media language suggesting current royal representation without sanction. If boundaries were repeatedly violated, though not legally binding internationally, the protocol would guide media, brands, and the public, signalling which family members held formal standing and which did not. By drawing these lines, the monarchy wasn't just protecting itself, it was defining its post-Diana, post-Meghan identity in the influencer era. The statement had ripple effects far beyond Buckingham Palace. Within 48 hours of the court circular's release, two major European fashion houses, Valentino and Bottega Veneta, quietly updated internal PR policies regarding celebrity affiliations, adding clauses requiring verifiable public duty alignment for heritage campaigns. One French executive commented anonymously, "The world is watching royalty differently now." Catherine set the tone. Meghan tried to change it. The industry chose. By mid-December, the contrast between the two women had become structural, not just social. One worked within legacy, the other tried to rebrand it. In fashion, as in monarchy, structure always wins over spectacle. If there were any doubts that Meghan viewed her Dior rejection as temporary, they vanished when her team quietly began shopping a new campaign proposal, codenamed Project Her Grace, to select luxury houses across Europe and North America. The pitch was audacious. Mood boards heavily inspired by Princess Diana's most iconic late 1950s fashion moments, from the revenge dress to the safari coat in Angola, to the navy blue velvet gown at the White House. It wasn't just visual homage, it was personal. The project explicitly proposed reclaiming Diana's public image through a new lens, Meghan, as a modern continuation of Diana's unfinished work. One slide bore the tagline, "Grace Interrupted." The initiative sent ripples across fashion and legacy sectors. The line had been truly crossed. On December 6, 2025, a redacted version of the Her Grace pitch leaked to the media via a whistleblower at an international branding agency affiliated with Louis Vuitton. The document detailed plans to position Meghan as the new ambassador of royal compassion, political courage, and timeless elegance, juxtaposed directly against Catherine. Where tradition pauses, transformation begins. One caption paired images of Meghan walking through the UN headquarters with Catherine at a British military parade. The contrast was strategic, not subtle. Within hours, the campaign unravelled. British outlets called it Diana cosplay turned branding scheme. American networks questioned the taste. French press, influential in fashion, condemned it outright. Even some of Meghan's past supporters expressed discomfort. A former editor at Loyuki posted on X, "Love her or not, this crosses an unspoken line. Diana was real. Her tragedy isn't a marketing framework." Once again, the palace said nothing directly, but the mechanisms of soft power were already in motion, quietly correcting the narrative and reaffirming the monarchy's authority and enduring dignity. On December 7th, King Charles approved the final publication of the Windsor Representation Principles, quietly circulating them to UK media partners, diplomatic channels, and high-end brands. The message was crystal clear. Legacy is not licensed. Titles do not authorize commerce. Royal status is not self-declared. While framed as internal guidance, the principles instantly became a de facto industry standard. PR agencies, fashion houses, even film producers began running royalty-aligned projects past legal teams with a new question: does this align with the Crown's representation policy? One London-based fashion attorney described the shift as a firewall against influencer monarchy. Another added, "The palace didn't ban Meghan. They simply made it impossible for anyone to pretend she speaks for them." Meanwhile, Meghan's campaign unravelled, and Catherine's popularity surged, without her asking for it. A December 8th YouGov poll reported the Princess of Wales's approval ratings at 76% in the UK, 68% in France, and 59% in the United States, marking her highest favourability yet. The surge in North America wasn't fuelled by flashy appearances. It came from absence of spectacle. On December 5th, Catherine made a surprise visit to the Royal School of Embroidery and Historic Textile Conservation, meeting female apprentices and highlighting the intersection of heritage, craft, and modern sustainability. She wore a recycled coat from a 2021 Remembrance Day event, tailored for the occasion. Fashion editors from British Vogue to WD featured her look, not as trend-setting, but as cultural signalling. The message was clear: she doesn't just wear clothes, she wears history. Dior quietly updated its website, listing Catherine's December look under timeless femininity, never naming her directly, yet speaking volumes. By December's end, multiple high-profile branding reports in Europe and Asia identified what analysts called the Catherine effect, a measurable consumer response to public figures aligning with non-commercial duty-based values. Women aged 25 to 40 showed key shifts: a 12% increase in luxury resale value for items previously worn by Catherine, a spike in organic searches for Alexander McQueen, Jenny Packham, and BAH London, and a 23% engagement boost on posts tied to her public duties, particularly health and education. Social media users dubbed it soft power style, contrasting sharply with Meghan's maximalist fashion choices. A Gen Z influencer in Berlin went viral on TikTok. Catherine's aesthetic feels like security and intention. Meghan's feels like auditioning. I don't want my icons to look like they're auditioning. By December 10th, the fallout was evident. Two stylists publicly confirmed they were no longer working with Meghan's team. A New York luxury PR firm declined to renew a contract, citing creative misalignment and shifting brand perception. An ambassadorial offer from a clean beauty startup was rescinded after backlash from Diana's former aide, who said Diana didn't stand for manipulation. She stood for meaning. Even Meghan's charitable endeavours, such as a planned December campaign on maternal health, were overshadowed by the PR storm she ignited. The tragedy wasn't the backlash, it was that it seemed entirely self-inflicted, driven by a relentless need to reframe public legacy as a personal platform. Catherine, by doing nothing, let the crown speak. She did not attack. She did not defend. She simply held her place. Meghan, by trying to occupy a symbolic role not assigned, collided head-on with an institution that does not bend to branding. And in that contrast, the world saw two truths. One woman learns that in the monarchy, grace is inherited, not declared. The other proves that in leadership, grace can be earned silently, steadily, with steel beneath the silk. It was a snowy morning at Sandringham when the final note was struck, not by press release, scandal, or spin, but through a moment of graceful clarity. On December 14th, 2025, the eve of the royal family's annual Christmas gathering, Kensington Palace released a short video message from the Princess of Wales. Filmed in a sunlit corner of her private drawing room, the message promoted early childhood initiatives and women's mental health. But what caught attention were the final 30 seconds, a subtle, stunning bookend to a month-long public drama. Catherine said softly, "Legacy is not something you inherit, it's something you honour day by day. Quietly, consistently, with the awareness that you are just one link in a very long chain. Never the centre, but always responsible." There was no mention of Dior, no reference to titles, no allusion to Meghan, and yet the message resonated across palace halls, Paris salons, and PR war rooms worldwide. By Christmas morning, Meghan's team received formal notices from at least 2 luxury houses, one French, one Italian, declining any discussion of future campaigns. Polite but firm, both brands cited alignment concerns, public representation, and sensitive legacy issues. A third, previously open to exploring a sustainability collaboration, quietly froze communications. After consulting a UK-based heritage strategist, a Milan fashion executive summed it up. The problem isn't her clothes, it's her context. Internally, Dior closed its investigation into the PR confusion earlier in December. Sources confirmed the company would take no legal action, but updated its global brand guidelines to include legacy image association risk as a consideration for future partnerships. Silently, decisively, the doors had closed. The royal family made no further comment. Their strategy never aimed at direct conflict. It was restoration of order anchored in clarity. Clarence House quietly amended its public website, updating royal patronage entries to include a disclaimer: only active members may engage in representational or charitable work under the Crown Seal or historic visual symbolism, with approval from His Majesty's household. In short, the Crown had locked the vault. Its contents were no longer available for reinterpretation. In a rare interview with Ladies' Journal, published as the dust settled, Catherine shared her view on public image. "I've always believed clothes should support the moment, not overpower it. The women who inspire me most, my mother, my grandmother, and yes, my husband's mother, carried their strength not on their sleeves, but in their silences." The weight of that final phrase was immediate, yet, as always, Catherine allowed interpretation to do the work for her. By year's end, analysts across branding, fashion, and public ethics began citing the Meghan Dior saga as a landmark case study in narrative control. Catherine never posted. Meghan overposted. Catherine honoured a tribute. Meghan chased one. Catherine represented duty. Meghan performed visibility. While parts of Meghan's US and digital fanbase remained loyal, her broader global influence had measurably declined. A mid-December report from Brand Trust Europe concluded consumers increasingly favour figures who resist commodifying identity. Meghan's attempt to commercialise royal legacy misjudged a global shift. Audiences now seek authenticity shaped by humility, not headlines. And in the end, Dior never issued a second statement. It didn't need to. Silence became a brand asset, aligned perfectly with Catherine's approach, measured, symbolic, and profoundly effective. The fashion house preserved its dignity, distance, and discretion, while affirming values through action, not association. Elegance doesn't chase, it chooses. As the new year dawned, a photograph from Sandringham quietly went viral. Catherine walking hand in hand with Prince George and Princess Charlotte on palace grounds. No stylist, no logos, no staged cameras, just a woman living her role. The world trusted her to play it. And somewhere far from that frame, a lesson settled across royals, brands, and audiences alike. Legacy isn't what you claim, it's what remains when you no longer need to speak. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like, subscribe, and share this story. Drop a comment with your thoughts on Catherine's quiet power versus Meghan's brand battles. Let's talk about who really controls legacy.